My name is Total Garble Aurelius, commander of the YouTube channel to the north, husband to a murdered wife, father to a not made yet son, and I will have my revenge, in this life or the next. That was awful. I gotta think of better intros, but I do love Gladiator. It's a classic. Hey guys, welcome back to the podcast. You're listening to Garblecast. I'm your host, Al, and today it's kind of more of a tame episode. We were supposed to have Tyler on, but unfortunately, he couldn't make it. He is going to try to hop on next week. He just had like a personal thing going on. It was a family emergency, and I don't blame him. So we're going to have to just do this week's episode without him. However, I did have a backup plan and some topics just in case he couldn't make it, as well as an interesting story, or what I hope is an interesting story. It was interesting to me because it scared the living hell out of me. But I digress. So, I'm going to get in the funny story, and then we're going to go over a couple different topics. The topics are, is Alien, like the Alien series, does it work better as a horror or an action film? Is modding in 76 worth it? And could modding save 76? And could LEGO survive without Disney, or at least at bare minimum, Star Wars? These are the topics. I don't know what order we're going to do them in, but I am excited to talk about them. So let's get into it. So, a couple weeks back, we're not going to talk too much about this on the podcast because I don't want to make the podcast political, but I will say that my heart goes out to everyone affected in the Ukraine conflict right now between both, Russia and Ukraine. My heart goes out to everyone caught in the middle of that. God bless. I hope that everyone can try to find peace in that in one way or another. That said, though, when the conflict first erupted, everyone was not sure how it was going to go. And it was around the time that potential very dangerous weaponry, quote unquote, I don't know if I can say it on the podcast, was mentioned being used. That could make things really, really, really dangerous for everyone. But, obviously, nobody thinks it's actually going to happen. So I'm following this story on TikTok at the time. And around the same time that the height of this is happening, I just think, all right, I'm going to go lay down in the break room on my lunch during, when I was working. So I told my boss that, and he's like, oh, yeah, sure, go ahead, take your break. And I go over and I lay down, and about halfway through my hour-long nap, alarms just start going out throughout the place I work. I don't know why, but my first thought was, oh, my God, this is it. It's happening. I was like Michael Scott. I'm like, oh, my God, it's happening. Everybody stay calm, stay calm. And I was just panicking, so I just bolted up, ran back into the office, and I'm like, what's going on? What's the alarms? Thinking, for some dumb reason, I should have been more calm in that moment, but I was just terrified, thinking, oh my God, this is it. And my boss is like, oh no, they're just testing the fire alarms. We're all good. He's like, I forgot to tell you. And I'm just sitting here thinking, dude, I thought we were about to die. I was really scared. Obviously, I shouldn't have panicked like that. He laughed at me. He thought it was funny. He forgot to tell me, but all my friends thought it was hilarious. Obviously, what's going on over there is a really serious situation, but I looked really dumb and stupid in the moment, and eventually I could kind of laugh at it now, but it just goes to show that make sure you find out whether or not there's going to be a fire drill before you take a nap, because you never know how that might affect certain events. Anyway, I wanted to hold off on that because I'm hoping in time the conflict over there kind of settles down, but I thought it was in poor taste when it originally happened to tell that story. Like I said, my heart goes out to everyone affected by that, and I just hope that they can find a resolution to it sooner than later, but I digress. Anyway, let's get into the topics. So I think I'm going to start with the Fallout topic, and we'll go from there. So right now, Fallout 76 is in a very weird place. We just had the Alien event, which was a lot of fun, but it's over now. We moved past it. The Alien event was really cool. There were a lot of cool rewards, cool building things, new guns, but it was a very fast event, and it was not overly, crazy. I definitely like it more than Phasnot, but it's not the greatest thing of all time, if that makes sense. But it was still a good, enjoyable time, if you could get like a server full of people that knew what they were doing, because the Aliens really packed a punch. I got all the plans I really wanted. I'm excited to use them in future projects. But yeah, it came and went, and I'm not sure what the next thing is. They have advertised that they're going to do expeditions to the pit in the future, as well as test your metal. which is going to be like challenges that you could do against really hard foes. And then there's going to be Nuka World on Tour. I have no idea what that is, but I am curious. However, I got to be honest, interest in 76 is probably at an all-time low, at least from what I've seen. And I'm not trying to be mean, but there's not a lot of cool content to bring people back. Even the season this season for the rewards was very lackluster, in my opinion. Like, they really dropped the ball on this season. Last season was kinda but this was definitely a step down, in my opinion. My chair is making noises again, I apologize. I think last time I checked, on average, on each platform, around 7,000 people a day will log on. That's it, 7,000. That is ridiculous. That number used to be so much more back in the day, and now we are just bleeding players. It's really bad. I barely find camps I can go to buy resources from anymore, which is making it harder to get ammunition in-game. I don't know, it's sad. I don't want 76 to fail, but you're just going to have to deal with the clicking, I apologize. I don't want 76 to fail, but at the same time, there's not a lot really enticing people back into the game. Now, originally when the game first came out, everyone on the scene was talking about modding and bringing in mods. And I gotta be honest, as cool as modding is, I love using mods. I've turned my Fallout game in Fallout 4 into literally anything but a Fallout game at this point. There's like elites and locusts and you name it, like clone troopers. It's insane. But my thoughts are, at this point, would modding even be enough to save Fallout 76? I gotta be honest, I don't think so, because there's a couple different reasons for this. One is, so many people have departed from the game that even if you added mods, I don't think it would be enough to bring back the crowd you had. Two, mods, though really cool, are going to be very limited, because I doubt that Bethesda would let you use certain mods if it looked like they were going to be copyright issued in a live service game. And even if they were allowed, I highly doubt they're going to be allowed in-game, like in the main game where people do their stuff. Because in Fallout Worlds, you can build what you want, do what you want, but that's a separate progression. That's like a separate timeline from the stuff you do in your main Fallout playthrough. I gotta get comfortable in this chair. It's just making loud noises. It's just annoying. But I just don't think, even if they put mods in, if it has to follow that rules of, hey, it's like Fallout Worlds where, yeah, you can play with mods, but it's going to be in a different lobby and you won't get any experience for it. Kind of similar to the achievements in Fallout, 4. I don't think people are going to go with it. Now, yeah, Fallout 4, it's cool, but that's because Fallout 4 is a sandbox where you can load in literally endless resources and materials. Fallout 76 is a different beast. It's a sandbox, but you have to really farm and hunt for the materials that you want. And you could very easily go through those materials very fast depending on events and things that happen. I just don't think it's going to be enough to save the game. Now, if modders were able to really add stuff like new stories, or add stuff maybe from other Fallout games like Securitrons or different enemies, turn Fallout 76 maybe into a different map. Like you could add like the Fallout 4 map. I don't know. I don't know how big the mods can be or how much they can go. I don't know if they're going to break the servers. But I gotta be honest, I just don't think mods are going to be enough to save this game. I really don't. They're cool and I love them, and God bless the creators that put their hard work into it and put it out on the store for free. You guys are amazing, you do great work, but I just don't know. Now, if they added modding, I guarantee it would bring back a little chunk of people for a hot minute, but it's not going to be the thing that resurrects this game. I gotta be brutally honest. I think Expeditions will definitely bring back a chunk of people, as well as some of the future events that they got planned on the roadmap. It'll bring back a little chunk of people. I think Expeditions will be the big draw, but I don't think this game has much of a future. I think unless they have something amazing on the horizon, which I doubt, I think Expeditions is going to be it, in my opinion. Now, I could be wrong. Who knows? Maybe next E3 they drop Return of the Enclave or something really cool, but my gut's telling me I think we're seeing the end of Fallout 76, or at least it's starting to wind down. I don't think we're going to get a DLC expansion area, maybe the pit technically, but not to the extent I think people are wanting, not like a Far Harbor thing. And it's really sad. I think the game had a lot of potential. I'm not saying the game is dead, but it's definitely not what it was, and I think that it's not going to get back to what it was either. I think we're now at a point where we have to accept that even if we get the stuff that's promised and even if it turns around a little bit, there's so many bigger and better games out there now. Like you have Elden Ring, you have what's the other one that just came out? Like if Halo ever gets their, eggs in a basket or whatever that is, like their ducks in a row, that's the quote. I just think that there's just a lot of better offers. Even just playing Fallout 4 with mods is a lot more fun in my opinion than playing 76 half the time. Most of my friends have moved on from the game, which is really sad. I miss playing with those guys, but I do not blame them for moving on. I think I'm the last 76 player in my friends group. But I'll still cherish those memories. I'm still going to be thankful for the friends I've made along the way, especially in stuff like Nuclear Winter. I had a blast. And I really hope that I can still remain friends with those guys long after 76 is done. And I will cherish the fond memories I had of 76. I'm not saying it's going to die, but it's very likely that we're heading down that path. I'm predicting it's going to die. So I don't think mods are going to be enough to save the game. Plus, that even depends on, even if they add mods, is Bethesda going to charge a different subscription just to use mods? Now, I know in 76, just to use Fallout Worlds and Fallout, like private servers, you have to pay a subscription. And if you add mods and you have to have, like, at least at bare minimum a Fallout First subscription for mods, let alone if they added a different subscription, you're going to just drive away the rest of the player base. I think at this point, yeah, mods would be nice, but I don't think it's going to be the save-all. But, if I'm wrong, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your guys' opinions on it. I do like that they are still trying to put some effort into the game, that the servers are still up, but I think we're kind of starting to see a wind down, in my opinion. Anyway, let's move on to the next topic. So, I was kind of curious about this. I brought this up in last week's podcast, but I'm going to bring it up now. I'm a big fan of the Alien series. Xenomorphs have always captured my imagination ever since I was a kid. My dad let me watch those movies, even though I was probably way too young. But everything about those movies was amazing to me. The monsters, the sets, the characters, the weaponry. It was all so cool. And I loved it. I've loved let me rephrase that. I've loved most of the movies. Like, 1 is amazing. 2 is probably my favorite. 3 is okay. It's not my favorite, but, it's kind of grown on me over time. 4 is, okay to an extent, but, it's not the greatest. It's not my first choice. I do like Alien vs. Predator. I think that movie gets way too much flack, in my opinion, but I do like that one. I didn't like AVPR. I thought that was bad. And I'd say that Prometheus was fine, but Alien Covenant was not fine. And Alien Covenant is kind of the driving force of this question. Now, the thing I want to ask is, originally when Alien first came out, and by this point we've also seen books, novels, like graphic novels, video games, you name it. I don't know if there was ever, an animated series. There might have been. There's toy lines, and I think they're working on a live-action Alien series, which is pretty cool. But the thing is, because the Alien, when it was first introduced, was a horror icon. And it still technically is a horror icon. It's supposed to be this scary, intimidating thing that lurks in the shadows. You don't know what it is. But it's been so flushed out now that when they tried to make it a horror thing, I wasn't really scared. Like, when I went to go see Alien Covenant, they, teased that movie to be, kind of going back to its roots with horror a little bit, and it just really didn't do that for me. So, the question is, does the Alien work better as a horror or an action kind of monster? I think originally, before it was flushed out, it worked better as a horror, in my opinion, right? I think when it was mysterious, you didn't know a thing about it. You just knew it came from eggs on a derelict ship, and it burst out of people and started hunting you and harvesting you. Yeah, that was scary. But we have explored the alien so much. I think that now, especially, it only works as one of two icons. It's not horror. I think it's going to work as either a slasher or it's going to work as an action movie, kind of like Monster. So it's kind of like nowadays with a Jason movie, where it's Jason's not really as scary as much as if you see Jason in a movie, it's just going to be a hack 'em up kind of movie. Yeah, it might have 1 or 2 jump scares, but that's not why you're watching it. And I love when the alien used to be a horror thing. I was on the edge of my seat. It was this monster. It just wanted to grab you and take you or eat you. It was just a literal killing machine. I think it can only work as an action, and I think it does work best as an action at this point. Originally, it worked really well as a horror, and I think if done right, it could be a horror again, given the right direction, the right tone, and the right setting. But I gotta be honest, I think for the most part though, it's a tone to, or it's akin to watching a Leatherface or a Jason monster kind of movie where it's you don't watch to be scared, you're watching it to watch people get murdered. And I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. I do miss that it was a horror monster, but I gotta admit, Aliens is one of my top favorite films of all time. It's amazing. There's a little bit of horror in that movie, but for the most part, it's an action film. And I really like that. I think that we can't go back. It's been explored too much. And I don't want to say that Ridley Scott kind of ruined his own creation, because it's kind of up in the air whether or not people like the direction he went with Prometheus and all that. I think some of the stuff he introduced was fine, but I just don't think the alien is as mysterious and scary as it used to be. That's why I'm kind of scared about the next Thing movie they make, is I'm afraid they're going to over-explain the Thing and kind of take away the fear and the unknown element of the Thing. I think when you overly explain the origins of a creature, you take away the mystery and what makes it scary. There's a reason why people are afraid of the dark. It's because they're scared of what they can't see and what they don't know. So in my humble opinion, I'd have to say the alien works best now as an action movie creature. Now, I'd love to see a director give a proper chance at it, maybe a good Blumhouse film, and teams up with Fox or whoever's in charge now. I don't know, since the Disney takeover. And I think I'd like to see a good director. I think Guillermo del Toro could make a really good alien movie. He's really good with set pieces and monster design, and I think he could really knock it out of the park. But that's just me. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on this. I know these are kind of faster topics. They weren't as whopping. I wasn't really sure if we were going to get Garblecast out, but I did want to at least talk about these. But yeah, let me know in the comments if you agree whether or not the alien is better as an action monster or a horror monster. Because in my opinion, I think we've now moved past the point of it being a horror monster by itself. It has to be an action monster. Alright, so I kind of saved a juicy topic for the end. Now this is debatable. I don't have any research or stocks or anything, but this is just theoretical. Now, I'm a big fan of Lego. You know this by now if you've stuck with the channel. For those of you that don't know, I'm a huge dork and I love to build Lego. It's very relaxing. I love to build scenes from movies, that sort of thing. But I've had a gripe with Lego. As much as I love Star Wars, I feel like licensed IPs are the only thing that dominates Lego anymore. I feel like if it's not from a movie or a video game or a show, it's not going to be on the shelf. And I get it. They got to make money. They're trying to cash in on the popular thing. But I do miss some of the creativity and originality from those original IP sets like Castle, Power Miners, Exo Force, you name it. Now, I've actually had this thought in my mind, but right now Lego and Disney are pretty cush with each other. They got a good partnership going. Disney's, a lot of their brands are done through Lego right now, like Star Wars and Marvel are the big two, as well as sometimes they'll do Magic Kingdom stuff or Disney characters. That's just one of the partners that that's just one of the partners that Lego has in their pocket. They also do stuff with Warner Brothers and Universal with Jurassic Park and Batman. But my question is that Disney is probably their biggest partner, I gotta be honest. Now, Disney also likes money, and I could see them trying something to make more money away from Lego. Kind of like how Hasbro does a lot of their own stuff in-house, like Transformers, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, G.I. Joe, you get the picture. If Disney was to go their own route and make their own building block brand, right? And let's just say it's as good of a quality, if maybe just a little less good a quality as Lego. Let's just say, hey, we're done doing Lego Star Wars, Lego Marvel. We're going to strike out on our own. Or for some weird reason, let's just say they team up with mega brands. I know they won't, but let's just hypothetically say that, right? And Lego Star Wars ceased to exist. Lego Marvel and Avengers ceased to exist. No more Disney stuff being sold at Disney parks. Could Lego survive that? Or at least at bare minimum, survive without Lego Star Wars, which you have to admit is their bread and butter. Like, I know we might disagree on it, but let's be honest. If we looked at Lego sales in general, I'd say Lego Star Wars is probably their biggest selling item. I think Lego could potentially survive if Disney pulled out, but they'd have to be really creative and they'd have to take steps right away, in my opinion. The first thing they'd have to do is really bulk up with their other partners. They'd probably have to bring back, like, Lego Lord of the Rings, something to really compete against the Disney IPs, because they own Star Wars and Marvel, which are the biggest two at the moment. Say what you want, but it's true. And I'd say Lord of the Rings and Harry Potter and DC would be the only thing they'd have in their pocket through another brand. I guess Jurassic Park too, but, God only knows if they're going to do Jurassic Park, if like Marvel ever buys out Jurassic Park or something. But for now, let's just say that it's just like Marvel, Disney stuff, and Star Wars that pull out. I could see it very much going to hurt them, and I could see Lego potentially surviving because the bricks alone are still fun, and they're still a sought-after brand. But I think they'd have to do two things. I think they'd have to really bulk up with their partners at Warner Brothers and Universal. They'd have to bring out maybe brands they put in the closet and don't do anymore. Because also, I forgot to mention, if Marvel and Disney pulled out, they'd probably take Indiana Jones too. I know Indiana Jones hasn't been on the shelf in years, but Indiana Jones technically does fall under that Lucasfilm and now Disney branch. So I could see if that went too, that could also hurt them because it limits a possibility for them to dip into. Now, I think Lord of the Rings sets could sell really well, and Harry Potter sets do sell a bit, but they do not bring in nearly the numbers that Disney stuff does. Disney would also probably take Pirates of the Caribbean sets with them. So I think Lego would have to, bulk up, and then they'd also probably have to start going back to non-licensed IPs. We'd have to see like the return of Castle, maybe Pirates, something to compete with Disney, because they know that Disney's going to bring, if Disney went to its own independent manufacturers in Disney House, Lego would have to compete against Pirates of the Caribbean, Star Wars, Marvel, you name it. And that's going to be really hard. Now, you still have a bunch of loyal Lego people, but at the same time, you also have fans of those IPs specifically, like Marvel specific and especially Star Wars specific fans that are going to want to stay with those brands. Even if they brought back Lego Indiana Jones too, that would be really hard to compete against. So let's just hypothetically say, let's set up the table, right? Let's say Disney sets up their own brand in-house of like a building block competitor that's very similar to Lego and close to, if not exact in quality. They would probably have Star Wars on the shelf. They would have Marvel. They'd have probably Pirates of the Caribbean and Indiana Jones. And that's assuming they do not tap into other IPs they own. Like, they could probably try to sell like those Friends sets. Like, you might have like Encanto or something for the girls. I think Lego could rebound, but they'd have to dip into their roots. To combat Indiana Jones, you'd have to bring back the classics, like Orient Expedition, or Egypt Adventures. To combat Star Wars, you'd probably have to bring Lord of the Rings into the fray. To combat Pirates of the Caribbean, you'd probably just have to bring back classic pirates. And then you have Jurassic Park, so that would definitely pull in some on its own. But to combat, what was the other one? Marvel, you'd really have to bulk up with DC and pray to God that DC made a huge turnaround with their movies, which they kind of are doing a little bit, but Marvel still is a powerhouse. I think Lego could survive, but like I said, they'd really have to be creative with it. They'd have to bring out better quality products, and they'd really have to be more open to fan feedback. Lego says they're open to fans and rebuilding the world, but there's a lot of times they're very hypocritical about that. They kind of go their own way, and they do not take fan opinion or requests as much unless they're absolutely forced into a corner. I think they'd have to get real creative with it, but that's just me. I think that if Disney pulled out, that would be a bummer because there are some things Disney provides I like from Lego, but overall, I think that Lego really, really depends on Disney, and Disney makes a good chunk of money from Lego as well. So we'll just have to see. But anyway, those are the podcast topics. Sorry that was kind of a shorter episode, but I just wanted to get those out of the way. I probably could have went more in depth, but I think I got out the thoughts I wanted to. I appreciate you guys tuning in. If you'd like to leave a like to show some support, I'd appreciate it. If you want to leave a comment, talk about some of the stuff I brought up. Maybe you agree, maybe you disagree, or maybe you just want me to bring up something in next week's episode. I'm always open to it. I like to do shout-outs. And if you like the channel's putting out, please feel free to subscribe. I've been hoping to put out a machinima in the near future. I was supposed to do it this week, but some craziness kind of came up, so we'll have to see. But I do have some of the voice lines recorded, but I digress. Thank you for checking out the channel, the podcast, and I'll catch you in the next episode. Bye.